You may remember when images of kids in cages began to surface and circulate. Around that time, I was invited to go south to the border and to document what I was seeing and experiencing through photography and writing. Now, we can't all go down to the border, and so I'm so glad that we have our friends who've spent a lot of time down at the border coming here to share stories of the border with us. I want to open tonight with a journal entry. And this is something I wrote actually back in 2018. I was traveling the country with Vote Common Good at that time, and we stopped at a little border town, Las Cruces, New Mexico. October 2018. What is this feeling? It's as if my chest is pounding and pumping and pulsing with the blood of humanity. What is this feeling? I have to write about last night. It was raining hard, but an extraordinary splinter of light broke through this drenching darkness that seemed to be smothering Las Cruces, New Mexico. We had pushed and pulled the Vote Common Good bus across the country and ended up in a church parking lot. We had planned to stay here for a couple nights. At first, everything about this little church screamed simple, humble, poor even. By the measure of my church experience, this place was old and outdated, unkempt. There's no air pumping through grand, glossy organ pipes here, no fancy chandeliers, no elaborately carved pulpit. There were long, jagged smears of spackling covering cracks in the plaster, and there wasn't even any attempt to blur them, to hide them. The wooden pews here are worn thin by generations, never replaced or repaired. I initially would have given this church a solid D-. It was forgettable. But I kept thinking about home, about Holland, Michigan, a community of multi-million-dollar pristine sanctuaries that dazzle and swoon, with clean lines and polished pews and sparkling people so perfectly trimmed out in their Sunday best, where the energy of our passion, of our voices, our arguments all seems to circle in a cloud of who is in and who is out, and do they have their theology exactly right? Where too much tithing is spent on keeping church decor up to the latest trends, technology to the highest quality, where entire committees are dedicated solely to keeping up the appearance of our buildings, where Cadillacs and classy hood ornaments fill our professionally landscaped parking lots. The churches of my home, we never mention our brown-skinned neighbors, can't make anyone feel uncomfortable, never talk politics, never pray for broken systems, never speak of human rights, never think outside the walls of our own shiny, whitewashed world. Keep us just dead enough inside that our focus stays on keeping up the appearance of being alive. And so I was thinking of all these things when it happened, when the light broke through. Another bus slid through the downpour under a sky dark as pitch and pulled into the parking lot behind ours. This bus was old and rickety and in desperate need of a paint job. Looked like a junkyard rescue, if I'm honest. And I was gawking when one of the church members handed me an umbrella and asked me to join them in creating a line between that bus and the church entrance. This awkward excuse of a bus was carrying refugees and immigrants. Families who had just been reunited after months of trauma and separation. We stood in that storm, hoisting our umbrellas, creating a path of dry ground for families to move through to safety and sanctuary on the other side. Rain was betwixt with tears, their tears, our tears, the tears of the whole universe, spinning, slipping, falling to the ground, turning the desert dust to mud beneath our feet. We became a human shield of umbrellas, greeting these beautiful, exhausted, terrified bodies. Bodies that had dragged heavy crosses through the desert, bodies that had been beaten and bruised and pierced in the sides, bodies whose heads have been pressed with the weight of 1,000 crown of thorns, bodies that bear God's image. And this church, this simple, lackluster place, was swarming with people lifting the crosses, removing the thorns, dressing the wounds. This church, this humble little place whose people were clothing the naked, feeding the hungry, tending the sick ones. These people were giving God her dignity back. And they got settled in the church, and the church ladies prepared and served dinner. And we all sat around tables breaking bread with these refugees, these neighbors, these people, now with names and faces and souls and stories that broke me. But this morning I woke up early around 5, decided to get a shower in before everyone was awake and in line for one. I quietly tiptoed inside the church to the scene of cots, mattresses scattered around in clusters, nests of soundly sleeping families curled up in little lumps, toddlers and babies in fetal positions with the soft curves of their mothers wrapped around them. The light in there was so warm and so soft, I hardly dared to breathe. I was so afraid of disturbing it. Safety, sanctuary, a literal sanctuary, a living sanctuary, a holy sanctuary, a sacred sanctuary within a sanctuary, an A+ first class sanctuary. Certainly the most beautiful sanctuary I'd ever set foot in. The whole scene of this room was lit up with a kind of serenity and unmistakably I could hear whispering in my ear, this is the way things are supposed to be. This is the way humans are supposed to be. This is the way the church is supposed to be. This is the way nations are supposed to be. God bless the living sanctuaries. God bless the hands and feet that enter the chaos and restore the world. God bless those who serve unbended and bruised up knees. God bless the tired and the weary. God bless those who light up the night and carry umbrellas into the storm. October 2018. I'm so glad you're here tonight. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad that we have the opportunity to hear from Vote Common Good, to hear their stories and experiences from the border. Will you please join me in giving a hearty welcome to Vote Common Good?
Hey everyone, thank you for being here. My name is Nick Brock and I'm the Executive Director for Vote Common Good West Michigan, and we partner with Vote Common Good to to change the narrative of politics and religion in West Michigan. So I'm thankful that you're here. If you haven't gotten a beer yet, you can over there, and then bring it in a little bit closer to enjoy the program. So I want to talk about immigration and how last year the Border Patrol reported more than 1.6 million encounters with migrants along the U.S.-Mexico border. Analysis from a report by the Pew Research Center revealed that of these encounters, repeat border crossers accounted for a sizable proportion of these, 27%, or nearly 450,000, which resulted in overstating the grand total. My attention, however, was not fixed on this big number, but on this peculiar phrase found in the data. And it said, encounters refer to events. Encounters with migrants refer to events. Simply put, according to definitions for the word event, encounters with migrants are places where something of importance happened. If that's the case, then, how should our national consciousness interpret these more than 1.6 million encounters? I propose with a sonnet. In 1883, an American writer named Emma Lazarus embedded her radical imagination for hospitality and welcome into a poem called The New Colossus. At the time, Lazarus was writing amidst economic depression, which fueled anxiety, fear, and animosity towards those, quote, taking away jobs from white men, end quote, and disrupting so-called white racial purity. Does this sound familiar to you? The year before the poem, Congress passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, the first federal law excluding immigration to specific groups. Its intent was to stop Chinese immigrants from living and working along the West Coast. And the Supreme Court ruled that on multiple occasions, exclusions could be determined if race was undesirable or for any other reason. The overarching message was that where the status of immigration was concerned, almost anything goes. And so it did. And so it does. And yet, like a voice of one calling from the wilderness, proclaiming, "Prepare the way," Lazarus penned a sonnet that was to be emblazoned upon the Statue of Liberty. And with a prophetic voice, Lady Liberty invites America to re-examine and reimagine a definition for where and how something of importance happens. From 300 feet in the air, Lady Liberty asserts, not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here, at our sea-washed sunset gate shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Friends, may our national consciousness embody a vision of America that glows worldwide welcome, 1.6 million times over. May we be a mother to the exiles seeking mercy, justice, and hope. And may we be compelled to light the doorstep to freedom and say with unequivocal certitude, something of importance happened here. I'd like to invite some friends up to the stage who share in this vision for what immigration is and how it can be different here locally. So I'd like to invite Kim Nagy, Doug Zylstra, Becky Steele, Larry Jackson, and Joseph Alfonso to the stage. So these are people, yeah, go ahead, give them a hand. These are all people running for local offices and who are also currently elected officials. So this tour is about what we can do concerning immigration, how we can change the narrative. So the question presented by Vote Common Good was, what is one thing you can do in your district to change or support immigration? So I'd like to invite Kim to the stage and share upon that.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you all. I would just like to say this is the second time Nick has made me follow him, and I don't appreciate him for that. But let's have a round of applause for Nick and those wonderful words. My name is Kim Nagy, and it is an honor to be with you tonight and to be part of this discussion. I serve as the political consultant for Vote Common Good West Michigan, and I met the national team during Brian Berghoff's campaign. I'm also the Democratic candidate for state senate in the new 31st, a district that includes the majority of Ottawa County and a small part of Allegan. The stats that I'm going to refer to are Ottawa County specific. When Nick asked me to speak on immigration, my first thought was, I know nothing, except that I was involved in mobilizing support for continuing refugee resettlement programs when the Trump administration was trying to eliminate those programs. And I passed migrant workers at Victory Farms on my way home from work. That's about it. So my second thought was, I better talk to some people. I reached out to David Lee and Sarah Jorvan Osterhout from Lighthouse Immigrant Advocates. David's here tonight. And I read the Gateways for Growth report issued by the Ottawa County Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I want to thank Sarah for a long and substantive discussion around immigration in Ottawa. I learned that there are roughly 16,000 immigrants in Ottawa contributing in myriad ways, including in 2019, $258.6 million of the county's GDP, which is 6.4%. $38.7 million in state and local taxes, and $335.3 million in spending power. Sarah expressed her frustration with reducing humans to dollar values, and I heartily agree with that. Unfortunately, in the political world, this is often where the conversation goes. The simple fact is we need immigrants, and we need to reset our attitude about immigrants, immigration, and those who are not born in America. We often pridefully assert that we are a nation of immigrants, yet we have historically marginalized groups, including the Chinese, Irish, Italians, and those forced here through slavery. Post 9/11, we see every brown person as a potential terrorist or someone determined to come here to take advantage of our social programs. At the urging of former County Administrator Al Vandenberg, Ottawa County formed the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. This office has come under attack from extremists in our county that seek to exclude anyone who is not Caucasian and their particular brand of Christian. I urge you to read the Gateways for Growth as my urging for one thing that you can do. Read the report, which is available on the Ottawa County website. And I also urge you to support our Office of DEI. Call, talk to your county commissioners, talk to your state reps about continuing to support that office as they are undergoing continuous attacks. Support the work of these groups and Lighthouse Immigrant Advocates we will all be better for it. Thank you.
Hello, friends. I'd like to thank Nick and everyone at Vote Common Good for including me in tonight's event. My name is Becky Steele, and I am an elected trustee in Georgetown Township. I am one of 7 voices tasked with the health, safety, and welfare of the 54,000 people who call Georgetown Township home. I am also a mom of 3 and a public school teacher who is just doing her best to be a good human and to model those values for the next generation in today's tumultuous political and social climate. This evening's event, the opportunity to learn more about our country's border and immigration practices, is such an important topic to tackle at the intersection of faith and politics. I am so profoundly humbled to be included among those attending and speaking tonight and reflecting on things that I can do to reform or support immigration in my local community. Nick asked me to keep my focus on one thing I can do, so here it is. I can use my 2 remaining minutes speaking here tonight to try to empower you. Please remember, respect, value, and celebrate the power of your voice and your vote, and use both of them wisely. Today's political climate, even at the local level, saddens and frustrates me. The Republican Party, which is my party, so I can talk about it, has adopted frightening far-right talking points. Republican policymakers emulate the voices and the tactics of party leadership and cable news anchors with vigor and fluency, all in the name of conservative, Christian, constitution-focused leadership. And then their constituents, which includes local leaders, the social media keyboard warriors, and the civically involved community members who reliably attend and speak at our school board and township board and county board meetings. They all parrot what they've heard to any audience that they can find. They are organized, and their message spreads exponentially. And on the issue of immigration and border practices, on the issues of human rights, these talking points are especially sickening. In my opinion, this practice of far-right politics in a 2-party system has abandoned much of the party's base and certainly doesn't reflect the "what would Jesus do" Christian mindset that I was taught to value. And these are most of the people that are governing my community. Hear me. Your vote has power. Research all candidates, regardless of where you fall on a political spectrum. Be open to candidates who might associate themselves with a different political party than you, but who walk in lockstep with you on issues of common good and moral character. I'm looking at you, Kim Nagy. Help them get elected. Try to identify where candidates get their funding. Donate generously to candidates who share your values and want to lead with integrity. Help them get elected. Hear me, your voice has power. Use it to speak out against injustice, even when it feels like no one is listening. Use it to spread kindness. Do your part to flip the narrative of our boardrooms and our social media circles. Use it to promote those working for the common good. Use it to lead with love and integrity. Use it to be the voice for the voiceless in your community. By using our combined votes to elect policymakers who will lead with integrity, we make our communities safer and more welcoming to immigrants. By using our combined voices to change the me first and white Americans first narratives that we hear and read in the world around us, we can save lives. Remember, respect, value, and celebrate the power of your voice and your vote, and use both of them wisely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Becky. Thanks, Nick, and thanks, Kim, for everything. My name is Doug Zylstra. I am the Ottawa County Commissioner for the City of Holland, and I really appreciate Common Good for putting this on and for inviting us and having us all here in this space together. Being the County Commissioner for the City of Holland, I am the lone Democrat. On the board, there's 11 of us. That's not really relevant in the sense that, partisanship, like Becky said, is not determinative, but it kind of gives me an insight into, what we need to be doing. Representing the City of Holland, I think we realize the importance of immigration. We realize the importance of immigrants to our community. And I want to touch on something that Kim was talking about. She referenced the DEI department. I think all of us know the importance of that office, the importance of Robin Afric's work to this community. She began about 3 years ago. And like Kim said, the department's been doing great work, but it's also been coming under a lot of pressure. In 2018, Kim referred to the Gateways for Growth. And the Great Gateways for Growth is an initiative that, not only is Ottawa County a part of, but the City of Holland is a part of, City of Grand Haven is a part of. And it's one of the tools that I think, as a commissioner, and one of the ways that, I can be a force for immigration and, force for immigrants in this community is to make sure that we keep going forward with that. So there was a study done, and Kim gave us some really good accounting of what that study talked about. Right now, we're working on kind of the second phase and really drilling into our communities and understanding things at a micro level. I think that's important, and what we do with that information is even more important. The goal is to have a welcoming office at Ottawa County, and that's going to be hopefully supported by our local townships, our local cities, nonprofits, but that's also dependent on you. Whether most of you are residents of Ottawa County, some of you are residents of City of Holland, City of Grand Haven, but if you're not, townships can also be part of this, because the most important thing is that we're all working together. And once we get that drive, both from the county level and from the city and the township level, we can have an office that works to make sure that the value of immigrants is recognized, both economically, but, the value of the diversity that they offer and the intangibles that the immigrants offer to our community, and the necessity of integrating everybody into making sure that, we're all rowing together. There's 300,000 of us in this community, at least in the Ottawa community, and we all have to work together, right? We all have to make sure we're part of this community together. So I guess Nick asked us to come up with one thing, so I guess as a commissioner, my goal is to make sure that that office and that initiative have as much resources as they can. And I'm doing all I can to make sure that that office is working towards those goals. But I'm also going to task you with you reaching out to your communities and making sure that, whether you live in the City of Holland, live in the City of Grand Haven, living in townships, that you reach out to them and say, look, the Office of DEI is working on this. This is important to me, and I want us to be part of that as well. So thank you for your time. Thank you.
Hey, how you guys doing? I'm Larry Jackson. I'm running for the new 86th district, which encompasses Holland, Holland Township, Park Township, and Lake Township. You guys heard all the numbers from them. In Holland, we have about 30,000 of our population is either immigrant population or related to that immigrant population. So one of the goals in my campaign is, just coming alongside of that community, doing whatever we can to bring those resources to that community, and just fighting, like Doug said, fighting to keep the initiatives going and different things like that, but also engaging. One of the guys from my church is part of LAUP, which is a local nonprofit that focuses on empowering the Latino voice and things like that. But a lot of people don't know that 6% of the population in Ottawa County is Laotian, that is an immigrant population. So coming alongside of all of those communities and bringing them along and going into those communities, what hasn't happened on the political level is the engagement, right? We haven't engaged with those communities to say, hey, you guys have this power, like Kim said, this purchasing power, but also voting power, also just power to move the needle of our community, because the sheer fact that this is the biggest growing Latino population in the state, in Ottawa County. So just coming alongside those communities and continuing to support and help the initiatives that are going forward. So thank you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joseph Alfonso. I am running for U.S. Congress. I've been working with Doug closely over the years since 2020. I'm the father of a 7-year-old girl and been married for nearly 10 years. When it comes to immigration, that is a very personal story for me. I'm a first-generation Hispanic American who originally grew up in the South Bronx. And from that period of time, these were the early 2000 years. Then in those communities, if you're, a poor Hispanic young adult, whether you be male or female, they kind of target your communities. And my father was deported when I was 12 years old. And it's not just my story. It's the story of thousands, if not millions, of Americans across the country. We grew up, for the most part, with one-parent household. My mom's originally from Puerto Rico. And just years and years of trying to fight the system to try to do something to make a change. And I promised myself from 14 years old on that I will do something, somehow, some way, as I got older. So now I'm running for Congress. It's a difficult thing to speak about publicly. It's a story that it's something that has to be shared, because there is consequences when people make policy. And I feel like the policy that people are creating is not taking that into account. The day my father was taken, my 9-year-old baby brother was left in the street as the police officers pulled him away. And he was stood there until a neighbor brought him home. That was a story I didn't hear until several years later. And I mean within the last 4 or 5 years. So what is the collateral damage allowed? What is that number? And I think it should be 0. We should start making policies that actually help the people. We shouldn't make it more difficult for people who are doing it the right way. Like somebody like myself who put in the hours, did the right thing, pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, in some cases found the pair, borrowed or made them. It takes a lot of work, and not a lot of people have that drive, only because the system just really defeats you. And for a long time, and I would say that because it's been 4 years that I've done everything right, put all the paperwork in, and I'm still waiting for him to get his legal status restored. So these are the things that we need to start working on, especially in the congressional level, but that's not just Congress. It's holding your elected officials accountable. Because you may be going to the store, you may make a purchase to somebody who's working there, who's in the community, who might be of Hispanic, Ethiopian, Bosnian descent, of any kind, because it's not just Hispanics getting deported, it's any vulnerable community. And they might be waiting to hear back an email, a phone call, or an update on a letter. So hold your elected officials accountable, even hold me accountable, because I'm not perfect, I'm still human, but I'm at least willing to admit that. Thank you.
All right, thanks for everybody for being up here. Hopefully you've taken one thing away that you can take into your community here in West Michigan. So, Doug, why don't you come forward, or let the people know what you've been up to.
Well, I'd like to introduce you now to our preacher today, Doug Padgett. Doug is a national speaker, he's a writer, he's a pastor, he's got this wide imagination that you're gonna have the opportunity to hear about today.
We are going to do this ride that Julio mentioned, where we're going to ride our bikes from San Diego across the country to St. Augustine, Florida. And we're going to do that along and as near to the U.S.-Mexico border as we can, to bear witness to the experience of people. It's going to take us 67 days to do this.
Our primary effort is to take the stories that we learn along the border and to tell them over time with people around the United States.
They killed her husband, and they have nowhere to go.
Especially in places that we think the political opinion about the border could really have impact on who we are as a country and who represents us.
Republicans have made a deliberate effort to talk to religious voters. And we really believe many evangelical voters really do want to find a new option.
This is the way we choose in this country to manage this part of the border, is to make this desert so deadly that if anyone crosses here, they're going to suffer in the desert.
Todos son muertos.
Todos.
We're 400 feet to a water tank and 800 feet to the road. Just didn't quite make it.
The systems that are created, they didn't just exist. Someone made them. And if we made them, we can change them.
Hey, we're really excited that you're here tonight. We did this ride that we talked about there. All that footage was of me saying, we're going to do this ride. It was a dream we had that we said we're going to try to ride across the country to raise awareness of what's happening on the border, but we didn't know if we could do it. I'm not much of a biker. When we put this idea together, I didn't own a bike that you could ride across the country. Had to buy a bike and learn how to ride, and a whole lot of other people had to say, what can we do to get ourselves along this U.S.-Mexico border? We call this thing the We the People ride. Recruiting up anyone. You're going to hear from people tonight who came along this ride. You're going to hear from people tonight that we met along the border. I'll just say this. We rode 3,156 miles across this country from one edge to the other. Now, I thank you for applauding for that. It really is a big deal. It was really hard. In fact, that shot at the end there where I'm leaning on my handlebars, that was day one. We went from the ocean in San Diego at the border, 4,000 feet on the first day and 46 miles. It was a tough day. We started on January 11th. I'm sorry, we started on September 11th. There's a reason, because there's a lot of issues that are linked together in this country. And we saw a lot of things. You're going to see a lot of video tonight, but we wanted to call people to common good border practices. A number of people rode. You're going to hear from Alicia tonight. This is us riding into McAllen. Just ordinary people who decided to get on a bike and go see what they could see. And we saw a lot of things. We saw checkpoints. We met with the Border Patrol and asked their opinions. We met with people who live right along the border. This is Mark Adams, who is with us. And one of the characters in our ride and one of the characters in the documentary that we're making, we want to show you pieces of tonight, is that wall. That big, brutal, horrible wall. We rode along it as much as we could. We camped in a RV. We had another truck. Tim Gilman is here. Tim Gilman drove that RV. Look, it's hard to ride 3,156 miles. It's also hard to drive an RV with 3,156 miles. So Tim, thanks for driving us all the way across this country. We're going to introduce you to these people that we met along the way tonight, and we want to recruit you to come along with us. Maybe we'll do another ride, I don't know, but we don't want you just to come with us on a bike ride. We want you to come with us on a journey of inviting people in this country to see the things that we saw when we were there. We're going to have a little trivia tonight, and in your hands you should have a card or a little envelope. That envelope's going to ask you for your name and email and address. It's also a thing you get to put your trivia question votes on. So take that out, and then if you get your answer right tonight, you get to wave that little white card up in the air and show people that you got the answer right. So our first question tonight is, what percent of Americans say that immigrants strengthen our country because of their hard work and talents, as opposed to the country taking them feeling like they take something from our country? Is it 24% who say that immigrants strengthen our country, 48%, 66%, or 82%? Make your little guess. You know, if you want to, show it to somebody next to you, or wait to see if you got it right, and then you can show it to them. What's your guess? 24%, 48%, 66%, 82%. And the answer is 66%. Hey, that's pretty good news, isn't it? Now, it's not 100. We're going to do all we can to make that number 100%, where everybody knows and recognizes the role that all people make in this country, including our immigrants. But it's better than you might have thought. How many people got 66%? Wave that card in the air. Oh, not so many. Okay, well, hey, those of you that wrote 82%, we'll get there someday. And those of us who wrote 48 or 24%, let's be reminded of the good news, that even though we hear things in our media and on the news, it's better news than we thought. We're going to make a documentary. We're making a documentary about the footage you saw, and we're going to show you some clips of it tonight. Partly because we know that documentaries help to move those kinds of numbers. In fact, a little survey. How many of you have watched a documentary in the last month? Look at that. How many of you have told somebody else about the documentary that you watched in the last couple of months? How many of you are so upset because people don't ever care about the documentary the way you care about the documentary that you told them about? Well, we want you to do that with our documentary. We want you to watch it. We want you to tell your friends and be as excited as you can about it, because we know that people need new information, they need new invitations, and they need communities of participation. And that's what we want to help create and want you to be a part of it. So we're going to show you a few things tonight. In a moment, you're going to meet Dora. But before you meet Dora, and she stands here, Dora lives in Tucson and works in Sasabe, Arizona. We want you to see about what the kind of work that she does there. So this is the work that we saw Dora doing.
Solo métalo un ratito en el agua, ¿ok? Que Dios le bendiga, hijo. Por lo menos vino aquí para que nosotros le demos una manita, oye. Lo siento mucho, de verdad.
6 días en el desierto.
Qué horrible, hijo, por Dios, qué horrible.
3 días estuve en la línea esperando a entrar. Y ahí la comida se estaba terminando, por eso se me agotó todo. Suero, Gator.
Lo
ya
siento.
el agua ya no.
Que vamos a dejar que se seque un poquito, ¿ok? Ay, perdón.
No, es que mis rodillas.
So he's hurting because he was with friends, but his 3 friends were able to walk with no problem, but he got his feet horrible. And I'll show you why, because the shoes that the smugglers give these people are horrible. This is how cheap they are, and every single pair of shoes that they get from the smugglers causes those blisters. So part of his story is very tragic, and it's very common that they get hurt and the group leave them behind because they want to go. They're going to do their journey. But the person who stay behind is when they risk their life to die. And this is what high school kids are doing all the way in
Providence, Rhode Island.
yes, beautiful. So I mean, I'm so thankful. And they write these beautiful notes and they put $20 for them so they can have some money for their journey. ¿Usted la leyó, la notita que le hizo la niña? ¿La leyó? La notita. Una niñita de 14 años escribió eso.
Querido amigo, hola, nombre es Katy. Soy estudiante en los Estados Unidos y tengo 14 años. Entiendo que tu vida...
Lo siento mucho. Muy linda. Que tu vida vale mucho, ¿verdad? Y la vida después puede incluir desafíos y luchas, dice. Encuentra salud y felicidad y éxito. Espero que tu viaje sea seguro por ayudar e incluido una donación para que en cualquiera de tus necesidades te deseo suerte. Con amor, Katy. Una niña de 14 años. Okay? This is beautiful. This is what these kids did. It's beautiful. Usted entró aquí por Sázabe, ¿verdad? ¿O entró por altar?
Por altar. Todos son muertos.
Todos. Todos, todos. Todo lo que usted ve rojo son todos los muertos que hemos encontrado desde el año entre 1999 hasta ahora. Hemos encontrado 3.862 muertos en estos desiertos. ¿Sí?
Okay, gracias.
Dios me lo bendiga, hermano.
Hasta igual.
Guatemala.
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 Él es mi hijo.
Hello. Is it on? Thank you for being in here tonight with us. Before I go on, I'd like to start with asking you to join me to a moment of silent reflection, quietness, to honor our brothers and sisters that have died in our borders, in those mountains, the rivers, the desert, where temperatures reach 117, where in the winter it's 20 degrees cold. Also to all the people who is waiting in the borders for these policies to change. And as well for everyone waiting for the cases to just finish so they can be at peace in this country. Can you please close your eyes for a second or just silence? Thank you so much. My name is Dora Rodriguez, and I am just honored to be part of this team. It's just an amazing journey, and I've been asked to share a little bit of my story, my personal journey, and why I do what I do. Like I said, you know, most of us have had maybe a moment in our life where it's tragedy, where it's, something had happened to us that make us turn around or stop for a minute and see where our mission is going to be in this life. So mine started when I was 19 years old. I came to this country seeking asylum, fleeing a civil war in my country. In El Salvador, the war in 1980 went on for 12 years, and it killed 75 people plus in my country. So I was only 19, and I had just finished high school. I wanted to go to the university and become a social worker. I have always been a person of, seeking justice for people since I was a kid. I remember I always had a loud voice. And my mother said, if you stay in this country, you're gonna get killed because you don't know how to stay quiet. And the death squad from the government was really targeting people my age. So I left. I tried 2 times. I was arrested at the border. I was sent back to my country. The second time I was sent back, it was when Monsignor Romero was murdered. So it was rough because when I got to my country, I got to witness a lot of death. And then when I got deported back, I stayed in my country. I had to hide in my house until the smugglers that we paid agreed to cross us, to bring us back to north. So in my group was 45 people. We created a community in the bus. The journey was not so horrible during the ride in the bus from El Salvador to Mexico. We developed friendship, sisterhood, everything. And in the bus was 3 sisters. They were beautiful, 12, 14, and 16. Those sisters were coming on the hands of the smugglers that the mother had paid them because it was the only way she can bring her little girls to the United States. And this happened in 1980. So I became their sister in the bus. We got to the border town with 7 days in the journey in the bus. And in the town of Sonoita, Sonora, which if you Google Arizona, you will see the Organ Pipe National Park. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful desert, but it's deadly. And it'll kill you if you don't know how to walk in that desert, if you don't have the appropriate shoes, if you don't have enough water. So that's what happened to us. So it was 45 of us, so that half of the people who had little ones were sent to Yuma, Arizona to cross. And us, younger people, middle-aged, and the younger girls, and the pregnant women, were asked to cross in that area of Organ Pipe. It was in July of 1980, where the temperatures reached 117, 120, even at night. We were lied by the smugglers. We didn't know what we got ourselves into it. We just didn't know. We were very naive about the area or how long it was going to take. They told us that within an hour we were going to be at the point where we were going to be picked up by an airplane. It was so treacherous, and that's what they do. They lie. So, to make long story short, by the second day we ran out of water, and we started drinking our pee, shaving lotion, anything that was liquid that we can drink. By the 4th day, my good friends, my 3 best friends that I have met in that trip have died around me. And I couldn't do anything to help them because I was in the same shape that they were. So at the end of 6 days that we were rescued, 13 people plus the baby and mama's tummy had died. So I was given a chance, and this is why I'm here in front of you. Because the chance I was given in the work I do is to honor every one of those people that couldn't make it, and the ones that up to today they can make it. in the area of Arizona, in my area where I do my work every single day, we have 226 people died last year in those deserts. And this is only the people that we can find. So, you know, when I give this space, I am so thankful because we need to raise our voices. And people said, well, what can we do? I said, it's a lot you can do. My story was my story, and I kept it secretly in my heart because it's painful. It's hard to talk about it. But 2016 came, and I was called in national television a rapist, a criminal, a no good, and I said, this is my time. I am going to tell my story because I know we can change. Because I know that because of my brothers and sisters who are fleeing violence, they're violating their right of safety. Asking for political asylum is a human right. And getting in that port of entry, and you ask for asylum, and instead of letting you in, they send you back to Mexico with a remaining Mexico order, which the last president came up out of nowhere in the middle of the night. It is criminal. It is totally criminal. We cannot have thousands and thousands of people in our borders in Mexico thinking that they are safe. Indigenous women from all those areas in Guatemala and South Mexico, they're getting hurt because of this law. And then, and as soon as the pandemic hit, we get hit with another law that it was out of nowhere, Title 42. Is anybody knows here what Title 42 is? The worst. Title 42 kills people, and it's criminal because it's an act for public health. Even the director of CDC says this has nothing to do with immigration. But the last president used that to immediately expel our migrants asking for asylum, crossing those borders. So those numbers that you were saying about 1 million people plus getting arrested are false because the same person tries 6, 7, 8 times. So Title 42 needs to go. It needs to stop. It's been hard to get rid of it because it's been used for the pandemic over and over and over, and it is not true. So what it does is send back our people to our border towns where it's extremely dangerous with no shoelaces, no belts, and their belongings in a trash bag in the middle of the night, women, children, and men. So that's how Casa Esperanza came alive in the very remote area of Sasabe, Sonora, in Arizona, in the area of Arizona. We had to have a place, a respite place, a sanctuary for our brothers and sisters that need help. So please help us to stop this. This is not okay, but we can do a lot. I see a lot of potential in this room. And thank you so much for being in here. Let's keep going. Let's not stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Dora. It was such a treat to run into Dora and meet her and to hear her story. There were a number of things we learned along this ride. One of those is that the border is not as dangerous as everyone is saying it is. We asked people as we rode along who lived along the border in the United States and Mexico, what's one thing you wish people in the rest of the country would know that you know by living here? And they would say over and over, please tell them that it's not as dangerous to live here as everyone is saying. Stop slandering us. The second thing we learned is the border is extremely dangerous if you're a migrant because of the United States policies and practices and border procedures. And that needs to change. The third is that people like Dora and like Alma Ruth, who you're going to meet tonight, and other organizations that you're going to see on this screen, small nonprofits, many of them led by women, are taking on the burden of caring for all the pain that's created by United States policy. And we want to tell our federal government to stop putting on the backs of small nonprofits the pain that you're creating by our border policies and practices. It's time to make that change. That's an applause line, and I'd love for you to applaud for that. That would feel pretty good. So we think that there needs to be change that comes in this country, and we want you to experience a little bit by hearing from these people. Here's a trivia question for you. Since 2003, how much money has the federal government spent on border security in the United States? Since 2003, how much have we spent? $700 million? $1 billion? $10 billion? $333 billion. How much money have we spent? Write your answer down on your little card there so you can hold it up and show off your answer to your friends if you want. How much has the United States spent? $333 billion. And yet we will hear it over and over. If we just secure the border first, how much more money is it going to take? The United States government spends $333 billion in these last 2 decades on that border. Causes so much pain and suffering. And who has to respond to that? Small nonprofits doing the best they can to deal with the human suffering created by our border policies. It doesn't have to be this way. We make our laws in this country, we elect our lawmakers in this country, and we can change our lawmakers in this country, and we can change our laws in this country, and that's something we should be reminding each other of all the time. So when we say vote common good, it's not just about a party, it's about who are we going to be. I want you to meet Lika, Sister Lika. We spent some time with her in the place that she runs, caring for these needs that are created in Nogales, Mexico.
El Centro Casa de la Misericordia y de todas las naciones, lo que nos dedicamos es ayudar a las personas con mayor vulnerabilidad en su vida. En este caso, en este momento es como un albergue, es un refugio para migrantes que están solicitando asilo a los Estados Unidos. La gente que está aquí en su mayoría son mexicanos, muchos vienen de Centroamérica, incluso de Sudamérica, Venezuela, Colombia, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, que van llegando hasta llegar a esos Nogales. La gente que está aquí no está porque quiere. Es gente que ha sufrido o su vida corre peligro y no pueden estar en sus lugares de origen y por eso tienen que dejar sus pueblos, sus casas para buscar una serenidad, una paz que no tienen en sus tierras. Esta mariposa representa la migración, the migrants.
Es la monarca, ¿no?
La monarca. Y para nosotros es como símbolo de la migración. Y al fondo voy a poner cometas. Un niño allá de aquel lado. Un niño con kite.
The United States law is that the only way you can seek asylum is on U.S. soil. You can't ask for asylum in the United States, even if you qualified for it, until you get to the United States and get on U.S. soil.
It's not just a border issue, it's a United States issue. And we're trying to ask the question, who's included in the we the people?
So the reason migrants are coming to the border and then turning themselves over to the Border Patrol is to ask for asylum.
We're a group of pastors that are organizing this and traveling the country. We really want faith voters to care about these issues. We know that a lot of faith voters think one way on Sunday when they're at church and then act another way on Tuesday when they walk into the voting booth.
We the People ride started in San Diego, California, and now these bikers are going to head on over to check out the migrant situation on the other side before they continue along their journey to Jacksonville, Florida.
I keep thinking about all the times that we have crossed into Mexico, how easily we can enter into Mexico, that the Mexican government just welcomes people like us to come in. And yet, in the United States, we put up razor wire and walls and armed guards and U.S. Army to keep people from coming in. That disparity just haunts me every day that we ride along this border. This doesn't feel as much like a shelter as it does a big family. Can you talk a little bit about how you create a sense of community?
Su situación permanece en un estado de familia. De hecho, nosotros recibimos familias completas, papá, mamá, hijos, mujeres solas con hijos o mujeres solas, que son las más vulnerables o menos espacios tienen donde llegar. Y crear esta comunidad ha sido como una respuesta a la necesidad, ponernos en los pies del migrante, ponernos en los pies de ellos y crear a través de la experiencia con el trabajo de las personas esta posibilidad de vivir en familia.
The word that keeps coming back to me on this ride is the word slander. And partly because in the Christian narrative, that's such an important word, to not slander people, that you don't speak of people in ways that are untrue and that are slanderous. And yet we slander these people who are trying to come to this country by creating all these narratives. The other story we should be telling is that these are survivors, these are heroes to their own family. These little girls and little boys who look up to their moms and dads who are making their way across other countries to get to safety. Those children are seeing their parents as heroes of their family and heroes of their faith. And we act as if they're the problem.
It's beautiful. Hi, my name is Dan, and I was one of the riders on the tour and had the privilege of making music with some of those kids you saw in that video. And it was just deeply moving and heartbreaking to know what these kids had been through and to see how resilient they were. They still had all this joy and life. But these kids shouldn't have to be resilient. We should be welcoming them into our country with open arms. They shouldn't have to go through what they're going through. I wrote a song that tells a bit of my story and what I think about a lot of these issues. And that's how I'll share my bit with you. I grew up in your churches, Sunday morning and evening service, knelt in tears at the foot of the rugged cross. Taught me every life is sacred, feed the hungry and clothe the naked. I learned from you the highest law is love. And I believed you when you said I should trust the words in red to guide my steps through a wicked world. And I assumed you'd do the same, so imagine my dismay when I watched you lead the sheep straight to the wolves. You said to love the lost, well, I'm loving you now. You said to speak the truth, I'm calling you out. Why don't you live the words that you put in my mouth? May love overcome and justice roll down. Oh, they started putting kids in cages, ripping mothers from their babies. And I looked to you to speak on their behalf. Oh, but all I heard was silence, or worse, you justified it, singing glory, hallelujah, raise the flag. See, your fear it turned to hatred, but you baptized it with language torn from the pages of the good book. You weaponized religion, and you wonder why I'm leaving to find Jesus on the wrong side of your walls. And you said to love the lost, well, I'm loving you now. You said to speak the truth, well, I'm calling you out. Why don't you live the words that you put in my mouth? May love overcome and justice roll down. Come home, come home. You're better than this. You taught me better than this. Come home, come home. You're better than this. I used to think you were better than this. Come home. Come home. Oh. Maybe I was too naive, or I just didn't want to see. There's always been a little poison in the well, 'cause we sit on stolen land, a nation built by stolen hands, and we use the Bible to justify it all. Yeah, from slavery and segregation to mass deportations, This is who we are, but not who we have to be. There's a lot of work to do to pull up the evil by the roots. But repentance has to come before there's peace. You said to love the lost. I'm trying to love you now. You said to speak the truth. That's why I'm calling you out. Why don't you live the words that you put in my mouth? May love overcome, injustice roll down. May love overcome, injustice roll down. May injustice roll down. May love overcome, injustice roll down. Thank you so much.
Up after him because all the rest of us cry every time he sings that song. So if you'd give us a moment of break, that's fantastic.
Hello. I think that's me. That's pretty cool. Hi, good evening. My name is David Lee. I have the honor of working with Lighthouse Immigrant Advocates. Oh, I should step over here and be in the light. I do development and communications, marketing. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I do have some notes, but I'm known for going off script, so we'll see how that goes. First of all, thank you all for being here tonight. It's really an honor to be able to be in a room. I grew up in New Jersey after immigrating to the United States with my family from South Korea. And now I live in West Michigan because I went to Hope College. I finally feel like it's like the first time ever. In New Jersey, everyone thought I was kind of a conservative or centrist politically because I went to church, and my parents were in the church, my father was a pastor. I moved out here to West Michigan, and everyone thought I was a flaming liberal. But in this room, I feel like, oh, maybe I am still a centrist. I feel like I'm home. It's good. So thanks for that. Today's a good day for a lot of reasons. It's also a bad day for other people, but I want you guys to celebrate with me. Our office is a nonprofit law office and advocacy center. We provide legal services for immigrants and immigrant families. We don't do hardly anything for free. We do charge fees, which are very nominal based on income. Actually almost every person on our staff is bilingual, and everyone but me is bilingual in English and Spanish. I'm the odd exception. I'm bilingual in English and Korean. We don't have any Korean clients right now, but I'm just waiting for the day. Today's a good day because some of our clients today got to speak some very important words. And these words mean a lot to me, too. I'd like to read them to you. I didn't memorize them. 1 second. I hereby declare on oath that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentiate, state, or sovereignty, of whom or which I have heretofore been a subject or citizen, that I will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will bear arms on behalf of the United States when required by the law, that I will perform non-combatant service in the armed forces of the United States when required by the law, that I will perform work of national importance under civilian direction when required by the law, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, so help me God. 2 of our clients got to speak those words. That is the oath of naturalization, and they got to talk That's the last thing you have to do to become a full-fledged American citizen. It's like literally you fill out all the forms, you go through years, sometimes decades of waiting. You finally get your notice, you go to the office, and you say these words to the person that's presiding over you, and then they literally give you your certificate in person. Like, that's the last act. You swear an oath. My parents got to swear this oath when I was 16. It was a long journey for them. It took them 10 years, which wasn't actually that bad now that I think about it. It only took them 10 years to get from being a student visa to getting a green card. We did lose a lot of money along the way because people tried to trick us, and then they stole it. It can be treacherous, right? But I had a pretty easy time. Our office exists because access to immigration is a human right. But the United States government doesn't see it that way, because it was never designed to. There's one line in here that is really important that I just want to draw attention to, and I hope I'm not raining on your parade later on, but you know, this is so important. Because I did a little Google research of you guys, and I was like, this is really cool. I was like, oh, I remember this guy from TV with the hat, talking. I hereby declare on oath that I will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That's really important. Did you know that that line is also repeated by the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, every Supreme Court justice, every senator, every representative, and a whole bunch of other higher offices? So that puts our naturalized citizens on the same level in terms of taking an oath with the highest positions of this country. That's something that non-naturalized citizens, as I like to refer to them, never really have to do, with the exception of veterans and people in the military service. Though you recognize that line, and there's a whole bunch more other than that, but most people are not in the armed services, and they've never taken that oath. They've never really thought about this obligation they have to defend the Constitution. The Constitution, which, this is how I found it on Google. I was like, wait a minute, this sounds kind of important. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. That's the preamble to the Constitution. That's why you picked it, right? I hope you weren't going to read that later, because I just... But that's what this is. That's what immigration is. Our office exists because borders are really designed to be crossed. And not just country borders, like life and death is a border. Married, not married, kids, no kids. These are big borders that everyone crosses. And the hardest ones really pull out of us our own humanity, how we deal with them, and how we deal with other people trying to cross them. Today, our office has helped about 3,000 clients. We were founded in 2015. My boss is a woman. She is Mexican, naturalized. I love her. She's not here, but she's the best. Our founding managing attorney is also a woman, so there's a lot of truth in saying that there are women carrying these efforts right now. And I truly appreciate the fact that this has come to Holland, Michigan, because it's really important. I have officially gone off the rails. Okay, all I can say is we exist because immigration is a human right. We charge low fees. We work locally here in Holland. We have full-time attorneys. We have accessible services, and we try our best to make it so that anyone who needs immigration services at the highest level can access them without having to worry about, are they gonna know what I'm talking about? Are they gonna judge me? Do they speak my language? Are they gonna have materials in a way that I can understand them? Are they gonna understand that it might take me 3 weeks to get back to them because I'm busy? Do they have a kids playing area that doesn't scare me? You go to the dentist, right, and there's what is that stuff? No, so we have designed our program every step of the way to be friendly, welcoming, but also professional. So it doesn't feel like, it doesn't feel like a church basement. It feels like a law office. And by doing that, we're able to help our clients cross those borders. And when that happens, really, it is transformational for our clients because they get connected all the way back to that same obligation to defend the laws of the United States. Oftentimes when people come to us, they've come to us because their uncle or some well-meaning person has tried to help them out by filling out a form with them, and then they submit it, and it gets rejected, and they get scared, and now they're getting a removal notice, and I don't know what's going on. They come to us because they're scared and they're desperate. And we understand that because 80% of our staff is naturalized citizens or immigrants or refugees. Like, we get it. That's here in Holland, Michigan. There are tons of other things I could say, but I mostly just want to share that the fact that this exists in Holland, in West Michigan, is not an accident. There is an incredible spirit of generosity and welcome that already exists in this area from way back when the Dutch settlers came here and decided to pick like the worst stretch of West Michigan to call home, and then planted tulips, and it's really cold in the winters. Like, there's a reason, right? They have done many things over the years to try and build a place that is vibrant and welcoming. And it's only recently that it has become unwelcoming. So, I'm honored to be able to work with Lighthouse Immigrant Advocates. Thank you for being immigrant advocates with us today.
Okay, Maria, thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Gracias por hacer esto.
Maria, will you tell us your name and where you're from?
Dinos tu nombre y de dónde eres.
Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es María. Yo vivo allá en Aldea Timactés, San Matías Tetambo, municipio de... Salí de mi país porque peligro para mí, peligro para mi hijo, y violencias, drogas, violaciones, no hay comidas, secuestradores para mis niños. Mi esposo hace años me dejó, se abandonó, él casó con otra mujer y se abandonó con mis hijos, por eso yo no quiero abandonar mis hijos, yo quiero mantener mis hijos.
¿Cuántos niños tienes?
2.
I have 2 children.
Un varón y una hembra.
One boy and one girl.
How old are they?
¿Cuántos años tienen?
Es mi hijo, trae 11 años.
One is 11.
Mi niña dejó 9 años.
And my girl that is back in Guatemala is 9 years old.
So why is your daughter back in Guatemala?
¿Por qué dejaste a tu niña en Guatemala?
Porque no hay dinero, ya no alcanza mi dinero cuando salí. Por ahora se perdió unos 34,000 quetzales. Porque cuando me trae mis 2 hijos, muchos dineros. Sí, es difícil. Me quedo triste. Cuando me dejó mi niña allá en Guatemala, estoy triste. Yo quiero luchar por mis niños. Yo no quiero perder mi vida, mis hijos. Allá no hay luz, no hay agua potable, no hay nada. Yo me trabajé día a día. Yo me salí como a las 6 de la mañana. Me llegó hasta las 4 de la tarde. Apenas me gané unos 30 quetzales. No hay dinero, no hay comida. Estoy triste. Ya va 11 años, quedó con mis hijos. Estoy luchando por Yo quiero luchar por mi vida, mis hijos. Yo no quiero.
I wanna
mis
keep
hijos.
fighting for the sake of my children.
Yo estoy miedo por aquí. No hay nadie me ayuda, pero gracias.
No, para servirte.
Sí.
When nobody was helping us, nobody looked at us. We are very thankful God sent us because everybody ignores us.
This is your son?
¿Es tu hijo?
Sí, es mi hijo.
Yeah, Pastor, thank you for sharing with us.
Gracias por ayudar.
Gracias. Thank you for helping us.
Te agradezco.
Claro, con mi corazón.
Yo abrazaba a mi niño, rápido salgan allí porque ya varias gentes vamos a cruzar, digo. Y luego salí, bajó del cima de esos, iba corriendo con mi niño porque son peligros también, ahí llegan los más feos también.
Nosotros solo, ellos dicen pues para los coyotes, dicen que cuando nos traen, dicen que nos dan comida, nos dan un autobús para llevarse, pero no era así.
To God of all breath, we ask for love and care and kindness and goodness to these sweet mothers, sons that we've met today. Changed policy for the United States, safety in that plaza, and to put it in the words of Jesus, may your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, because this is not that. So we will say an amen, but it is a paused and broken amen, because this work is unfinished. Amen.
Hi guys. God bless you. My name is Alma Ruth. I am a recent immigrant from Northeast Mexico. And it is a privilege to be here with you. And like Doug was saying, it is, when Dan was singing his song, you know, it's just, for people of faith, that is very strong message for us. I'm part of the first generation of Mexican missionaries that is serving in a global context, and I am what you consider, you know, Brother Lee was talking, you know, centrist, leftist, and I'm a recent immigrant, so I cannot keep up with all the fads of the American culture, so I don't know what I am, but I care and following the ways of Jesus, and so it's something that is so important for me. I've been crossing borders for a long time. I've been involved in global service, faith-based humanitarian service since 1990. So I have been on the border with Ukraine and Slovakia. I've been in the border of Nepal and India, and I've been in the border of Guatemala and Mexico. And it's always the same story. I've been in Havana. I don't know, the majority of you guys are adults, so you can remember this. I served in Cuba for several years. It's one of my favorite nations. And I was there during the rafters crisis. I think the seasoned people can remember that, the rafters in the 90s, you know, when Clinton was president and there was major riots in Havana and in Cuba. Cubans were given asylum just by touching the land and American soil. And so I was in Havana on the day that the only riot in Havana happened against Fidel. And so one of the reasons why I was detained by the Cuban military was that we were smuggling Bibles into Havana, and we gave a New Testament to Che Guevara's granddaughter. So some seasoned people, I don't want to say older people, but seasoned people here, you know about Fidel Castro, Che Guevara, who knows about that? You remember the name, right? You know, new people are like, what, huh? Oh, well, yeah. And so we gave a New Testament to Che Guevara's granddaughter. And so it was so interesting to see how the justice is so driven in the Cuban people, you know, the freedom, and they talk, and the way they talk is very unique, you know, Yankee imperialism, you know, and they want to control the nations. And so I lived in Havana, I lived in Cuba for several years, you know, on and off for the island, but so the Lord has been drawing me to immigration, right? I saw the rafters in Havana, you know, and why are they risking their lives to cross into Miami? And because it was no desert and it's no river, but it was the ocean. You know, from Havana to Key West is 90 miles, but it's open ocean. And I would hear the stories from my friends in Cuba that the relatives, one girl had her period and she was thrown off the raft because it was attracting sharks. And you know, often the Lord kept drawing me to border stories. And now I'm understanding that it took me all that journey to understand that it's always women and children that take the brunt of suffering and pain and death. And now we have a perfect time in history to change that. And now we are, and I'm so thankful for Doug, who's one of my favorite people in the planet, right? And when he says, you know, I want you to come with us, you know, and you can choose where you want to be, in Ohio, Pennsylvania. And I says, I have friends in Michigan, and I've never been there, so I need to go there. So I'm in Michigan for the first time, and I am so happy to be here with you and invite you that you and I together can make a difference in this time in history and speak up for the people that cannot speak. And it's time now, because the young people that are watching us, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren are gonna ask you, what did you do at that time? And if you are a person of faith, even more so, because something that we often forget, especially after the past administration, is that God is a God of justice. And our organization is an emerging grassroots organization called Practice Mercy Foundation. And mercy is something that nobody deserves. It's something that is given freely. And as a nation, the United States is we say, is the greatest nation on earth. We should act like it. We should behave like it. And it's something that Doug said in one of the scenes is, we made those laws, we can change them. And it's time we change that. It is time that we behave to the character and the level that an American citizen should behave. And it's time that we take that challenge and say, enough, this is wrong. Human life is sacred, because a cat and an American dog live better than my friends that are living in refugee camps on the Mexican side of the border. If you go there, and if you go to an American house, an American dog and an American cat are living better than the children that you see on the screen. And it's wrong. It is not right. It doesn't matter what kind of politics you have. It is wrong that children are living in those conditions. Why? Because foreign policy that is made in D.C. means life or death to the people we serve. Whatever is made in those fancy offices by congressmen and senators mean life or death on the Mexican borderlands. And these are people that are seeking refuge in our borders. It is that from the International Bridge in Texas, you can see the refugee camp that are building within our borders. And you and I can make a difference. You and I can say, this is wrong, we need to change it. So we are here inviting you to participate with us so we can change our present, so we can change the circumstances. I can assure you that those moms that were speaking to us will forever be grateful. And those boys that their mothers are rescuing because they want to save their lives, they will be hard workers. They can get to Harvard if given the opportunity. So we can do this. We can do that. Together we can do that. And so I want to read one of the verses that I really appreciate. Is in Isaiah 1:17. in the Tanakh, in the Old Testament, and it says, learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression, bring justice to the fatherless, and plead the widow's cause. Isaiah 1:17. And if we practice this, we will be a better society, we'll be better people, and there will be a lot of grateful children. Thank you so much. God bless you.
We're going to introduce you to some people who went on the ride with us. Now, you've met Alma and Dora, and you met the people in the videos. And we want you to spend some time with them. In fact, we have tables back there. If you make a donation, we want to send you home with something. If you want money to go to the work that Alma is doing with those women in the plaza, that Dora is doing in the videos that you saw, you can make that donation in the back. Or if you want to help support this documentary, we'd invite you to do that. But we also want you to meet the people who went on the ride with us. And part of the reason is because these are people who didn't know what to do either. So they found a way because someone invited them. The reason we put this ride together is because someone invited us to put a ride together. We need to be inviting each other. So I want to start to encourage you tonight to think about who you can invite in some way and somehow to do something. I'll give you a little mental break here because it's a lot, isn't it? This is a lot. You know, we've been traveling since last week. We were in Pittsburgh, and then we were in Columbus, Ohio, and we did a couple of things there, and then we were over in Grand Rapids last night, and tomorrow we're going to South Bend, and then we're going off to Madison, and then we're going to Minneapolis by Sunday. This is a lot to carry. It's a lot to sit through on just one night. We know that, so we'll give you a little mental break here. Dora is from McAllen, Texas. That is down on the southern border, so we'll give you a little trivia about Texas. Crime data from Texas shows that the crime rate for those who are undocumented or don't have legal documentation, sometimes derogatorily referred to as illegal people. Undocumented, the crime rate for those people compared to native-born Americans is which of these? 45% lower, the same, higher by 82%, or 166% higher? Write your answer down in the little card there so you can wave it up in the air when you get it right. And the answer is 45% lower. How many of you wrote that down? The crime rate, and this is not just true in Texas, all around the world is lower. It's not always the story we hear. I want you to hear from Shane Claiborne. He came along on the ride with us. He's going to share with you some piece of these stories. So Shane, thanks for being with us, and thanks for coming on the ride, my friend.
All right. Well, I know as you hear these stories, they rip our hearts out, but they also inspire us to believe that things can be different. And I went on the ride because I believe that. After day one, I am not a cyclist. I'm a unicyclist, but I'm not a cyclist. And so after day one, we did about 40 or 50 miles, and I was in bad shape. I won't go into details, but it had something to do with chafing. And I talked to Doug about it, and he gave me these like secret, it was like a leotard thing with a pad, and it was basically Superman underwear. And I wore that thing and made it through. I was able to go about 200 miles on a couple of different chunks. You're going to hear from people that went a lot more than that, but it was what I could do. You know, we're all doing the piece that we can. And as we rode along the border, one of the things kept coming back to me as we rode along the fence, especially along the wall. And it was a story that Jesus told, one of the parables that Jesus told. The parables are kind of like a story with a point, right? And Jesus told a lot of those. And one of the ones he told that I didn't hear much growing up in church is a story about the rich man and Lazarus, as it's often called. And Jesus told this story about a rich man that lived in a gated world. He lived behind a wall that separated him from the suffering on the other side, particularly the suffering of a man named Lazarus. And as the story goes on, Jesus says, Lazarus and the rich man died. And the rich man finds himself separated from God, begging for water. And the beggar, Lazarus, was actually rescued by the angels and is sitting next to Abraham in heaven. And it's a hard story to read, you know, but I thought of that as we rode along this border, and Jesus says to the rich man that all the luxury and comfort that you experienced in this life, Lazarus was living through hell. And you were hiding behind a gate. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. What the rich man found was that he thought he was locking himself into safety, but he was actually locking himself into hell, because we are made to love and be loved. We're made for compassion, right? And when we hide behind walls and fences and gates, and they isolate us from those who are hurting on the other side, not only do the walls separate us from the suffering of the world, but they separate us from God. And that story kept coming back to me, and I kept thinking, so much of this is about fear, right? And in our fears, we build these walls that we think we are locking out dangerous people, but we are actually the ones who are in danger because of our mythology and our fears that are socialized and conditioned. Right when I got back, I started reading a little bit more on how unreasonable our fears are, right? And check this out. One of the things that is true in America is that you are twice as likely to be killed by a white supremacist than by a Muslim extremist. Isn't that something? Maybe not too surprising to us, but you keep thinking about immigrants and refugees, and I saw a study by the Cato Institute that says, folks are talking about how we need to fear immigrants and refugees, but you saw them, right? The families, the children hugging their mothers as they're crying and telling their stories. Those were the people that we met. Those are the people who Dora and Alma are working with every single day. We saw those families, and so this study at Cato, they listed all of the things that are more likely to kill you than an immigrant or a refugee. Would you like to hear a few of them? One of them is lightning. Another one is a roller coaster. No kidding. Another one is a cow is more likely to kill you than an immigrant or refugee. One of the ones that struck me was a vending machine falling on you is more likely to kill you than an immigrant or a refugee. But that's not how we're conditioned, right, to fear. I mean, we don't walk around vending machines like, whoa, look out. And yet, so many of us are being told these lies about people just because they don't look like us. So much of what's happening in our country is about fear of the changing demographics of our country. And so we have a choice right now. And there's a beautiful scripture that says that perfect love casteth out fear. I know this isn't church tonight, but you can say amen if you want to, because I'm going to invite you to say tonight, we are going to choose love, not fear. Say it with me. Love, not fear. Love, not fear. That's our choice. Imagine if it was love, not fear, that was compelling our policies on immigration or guns or so many other things, right? What if we choose love and we say we are going to live without fear? We're going to choose love in this moment. And so I want to just share one last story because some of these are so heavy. And there was one particular day when we were in Agua Prieta and we were remembering one of the lives that was lost, and there was a heaviness that was appropriate, right? As someone had just lost their life, but it occurred to me that this story that I had heard from an old preacher, it's one of those stories about Peter at heaven's gate, bringing in the people who have died. And as the story goes, Peter is there with the angels checking the Lamb's book of life, right? He's got the names of the people who are supposed to be coming in. So he's making sure as folks enter into heaven that he checks off their name. And one of the angels comes up to Peter and says, listen, we got a little problem here in heaven, right? And Peter says, what is it? And the angel says, we did a census. And unfortunately, Peter, there are more people in heaven than we have accounted for. And Peter's like, oh, really? Well, go figure it out. See, snoop around, figure out what the problem is. And the angels come back some time later and they say, Peter, we found the problem. Peter says, what is it? And the angel said, it's Jesus. We found him on the other side of the wall, lifting people over the wall. don't get too deep into that. I'm not trying to get theological, but I'm just saying we know how big God's love is, right? And my invitation for us is to love as big as God loves, and to say no wall, no matter how big it is, can separate us from our suffering neighbors. We will not hide behind walls because we are made to love, and we will choose love over fear. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. One of the questions people ask all the time, why don't people just come legally? Why don't they just come the legal way? Why don't they just do it the right way? If you've heard it yourself, maybe you've even said it. Well, I'll tell you, travel along the border and you say to the Border Patrol and you say to people making our border policy, why doesn't our country do it the right way? Not why don't the immigrants do it the right way? Here's a trivia question for you. Of all legal immigrants allowed in the United States each year, what % can come from any one country? I didn't even know this was a question to ask. I didn't know we put a limit on how many migrants can come from any one country based on the total number of immigrants that we allow in the country each year. Did you know there's a limit on how many people can come in the country each year as new immigrants? There is a limit. So when people say, why don't they come the legal way? For a lot of them, there is no legal way. The door's closed, the number quota has been met, and that's it, they can't come. What percentage can come from any one country? Is it 7% from any one country of the total amount that can come in? 32%? 76%? Or am I just making all this up and there's no limit? And write your answer down. And the answer is 7% can come from any one country. Roughly 47,000 people from any one country is the most that can come from any one country. There are 320 million people that live in the United States. Remind yourself of that before you think that 47,000 people from Mexico or Guatemala or Honduras could ever come into the country. In 2019, the United States allowed asylum seekers from Guatemala to come into the country. They allowed 7 people. The problem is not that immigrants are doing it the wrong way. The problem is that the right way is the wrong way. That's what's going on. And those are things that we can change. Now, we learned a number of things as we traveled around the country, and one of those was that people on the border calling for more border security claimed this as their number one reason. We have to stop the drugs. Maybe you've heard it. Not just drugs, fentanyl. We have to stop the fentanyl from coming in. Republican governors called a bunch of Republican governors, went down to a place that we visited, stood on the banks of the Rio Grande River and said, we have to build a wall here to stop fentanyl from coming into our country. As if the reason people use fentanyl in the United States is because fentanyl is in the country. We don't bring fentanyl into the country to make people addicts. Drugs come in the country because the demand that's in the country. There are a number of issues that are linked. If we want to stop drug use in this country, we should deal with it on the demand side and not try to blame the immigrants who are coming in who are not carrying drugs. The other thing we learned, and you know this intuitively, if you were going to smuggle drugs in the country, would you put them in the backpack of that man who had the blisters on his feet? That doesn't make any sense. You put them into trucks and airplanes and cargo containers. And that's where it all comes. So this idea that we should stop immigrants to keep fentanyl out of our country, it's not coming from these people. They're not drug dealers. They're moms and dads and children yearning to breathe free in this country as they breathe free in their own. So the issues of drug use and fentanyl are connected. Part of the reason I want to stress that is because someone who came with us on our ride named Danny Strong, you're going to hear from him in a moment, produced a show that I watched, that we actually watched on the ride on Hulu. It's a show called Dope Sick. We're going to show you that trailer here in a minute because the issues between opioid crisis and drug use in the United States and immigration policy are linked. So as we talk about these issues, because I promise you, if you try to talk to everybody about immigration all the time, they don't all want to hear it. Do we all know that, amen? Yeah, try being people that are traveling around the country trying to talk to people about immigration. They get nervous and don't know what to say. They don't want to talk about it. So when you can find the other ways to include the other conversation points to talk about it, it really is powerful. So here's the work that Danny Strong does, and he produced this show, and maybe you've seen this show already. So, little trailer.
I know most people don't think about us up there in the mountains. Many of my patients are miners. It's dangerous work, and they carry the burden of building this nation on their backs. They're in pain. These people, my people, trusted me. I can't believe how many of them are dead now.
We've begun looking at something that could be big.
OxyContin.
Purdue Pharma, they've been marketing the drug as something that's non-addictive, when it clearly is.
All your doctors are going to be asking, how is this even possible? Your most effective talking point are these magic words.
Less than 1%.
Less than 1%.
Less than 1%.
Less than 1?
They told me that less than 1% would become addicted.
If OxyContin does what I think it can, it could soon become Purdue's first billion-dollar drug.
Purdue continues to lie about the drug's safety to doctors, to patients, and the FDA. We have a major case here.
Addiction rates, overdoses, and crime are on the rise across the country because of this drug.
I think maybe the medicine might be just a tad more addictive than you said.
I can't live like this anymore.
Our community is ground zero for a national catastrophe.
Purdue will not move unless we punch hard.
this is not our fault. These people want to be addicted.
I want top executives to feel some pain.
It's crucial they understand we've created the greatest painkiller in the history of human civilization. I think I can make this the biggest drug in the world.
Well, thanks for sitting through the trailer here, and thank you, Doug. Truly amazing organization. I'm really feel honored to be a part of this. One of the reasons why I wanted to make Dope Sick, which is the story of the opioid crisis, was because I was blown away by the lies and the deception of this company, Purdue Pharma, in selling a highly addictive narcotic as non-addictive. And from that lie, we have the opioid crisis, which you're all familiar with. But one of the things that was so fascinating to me about it, and so disturbing about it, was how this company was able to maneuver through the highest levels of the US government. The FDA, the DEA, the Justice Department, all the institutions of government that were there to stop them, to protect us from dishonest companies like Purdue Pharma, like the Sackler family who run Purdue Pharma. They let them go. They failed us. And people often ask me, how did that happen? And the answer is very simple. It's money. They were able to use their money and the amount of money that this product made to maneuver their way through and to keep selling all these years later. And when I look at the border situation, one of the first things that crosses my mind about the wall, the policies, is that same word, which is money. It is a huge business, and it's a business that motivates the US government to keep it going. One of the elements of it is just the private prisons. These private prisons, I believe there are 4 in just Arizona alone. The number of hotels all along the border that are occupied, 80% by US government officials. So it's literally a big, huge business that there is a lot of motivation from people at the highest levels to keep going that has nothing to do with immigration policy. Now, when Pastor Doug asked me to come to the border, to bike for a few days, I didn't really know anything about the border besides the general perception of it, which is that it's dangerous, right? I mean, that's the media narrative about the border, which, you know, it's lawless, it's dangerous, it's a war zone, it's cartel-ridden. And I thought, well, I assumed that wasn't completely true, and Pastor Doug was going to be there. He's very tall, so I felt like, well, I'll be safe with Doug. And my fiance, she was terrified that I was going to go bike along the border. I'm like, baby, don't worry, I'm very tough. I can handle this, right? So we show up there on the border, and there was maybe 6 of us, 7 of us, all in matching blue shirts. It's not the toughest group you've ever seen. And what did we see there? Was it dangerous? Was it violent? Was it scary? The polar opposite in every way. It was completely normal. Just people living their lives. I mean, the strangest thing that was there on the border was us biking in our matching shirts through Mexico. And we were biking through Mexico, and what did people do? They waved, you know? They waved. Some people looked at us a little weird, like, you know, like, what are you guys doing? I'd wave, and they'd wave back. It was so friendly, so normal. And Doug, this was mostly your experience across the entire border, wasn't it? You know, that it was just this polar opposite of what the media narrative is. Now, there was one element to it that was scary and that was unsettling, and that was the wall. The wall was the scariest part of the border, and not on the Mexico side. On the Mexico side, looking at the wall, there are parts of it where there are murals, it's painted, but on the U.S. side, there is this barbed wire that makes it look like a prison. Except the people that are in prison, according to the visual of this wall, is the United States. We're the ones that are in prison. I mean, this is me looking at the wall, right? And I remember having this feeling of, oh, it's our souls are imprisoned by this wall. This is not who we are. This wall, it felt like it was filled with anger and hate. And it made me thinking, you know, where does this come from? Where does all of this come from? And there's a pretty clear answer, which is the media narrative. That is the opposite, as I said, of what I and what Doug actually experienced along this ride. And who are the victims of that narrative? Well, everyone you've heard about tonight. You know, these incredible videos and these people and the presentations by Dora and Alma that are, you know, so deeply moving. They're the ones that are the heroes, having to protect the people that are the victims of our policy. And, you know, and I'll just say that as someone who works in the media, in entertainment, one of the things that's I find really disturbing is that I see in news stories, and this just isn't just Fox News, you know, I see this on CNN, I see this on MSNBC, I see this on Twitter when you look at links to articles, that there is an extremism. And the extremism is so you'll watch it. The news, it wants to make you angry. It wants to make you scared. Because it's trying to entertain you in a weird way, in the way that me and my friends that write material and write scripted drama, the way that we're trying to entertain you, except we're trying to do it as, quote, entertainment, right? But the news is doing it because it wants you to watch. It wants you to click. And it's doing it with extremism, with heightened drama, with manipulating the truth, or in the case of the border, creating a false narrative. And what does that do when we watch it? It makes us angry. It agitates us. And that anger makes our fellow citizens our enemies if they don't believe the same thing we believe. I spoke to a couple tonight who they changed their vote in 2016 from Trump to in 2020 to Biden, and friends didn't talk to them anymore. That doesn't feel like who we are as a people or what this country is about. But I believe that these narratives that we're fed, it gives this anger that makes us hate our people that don't believe the exact same thing we believe. And so, one thing I would love to just, for you to be a gospel of, to spread, is to look at the news and look at when it's trying to scare you or trying to make you nervous or trying to get you to click. And once you start thinking this way, I did that like I'm going crazy, which I am going a little crazy with watching all this stuff. You start to see it everywhere. You start to realize how much that extremism is being used to just get eyeballs so that people can make money from it. And all of this comes back to where I began, which is money. And we've got the Sackler family with the opioid crisis making money. We've got the owners of private prisons along the border making money. We've got a few small families that own media empires making money. It's a very small group of people making a lot of money off of tearing apart this country, off of creating this hatred amongst people that are just coming to this country seeking better lives. And in doing so, I think we need them as much as they need us. And I think that what Pastor Doug is doing, what this whole mission is doing, is, I think, one of the most important narratives that can be told in this country today. So thank you so much for being here. It's truly an honor, and I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, good evening. My name is Alicia Manis, and I'm actually right here from Holland, Michigan. So one of the joys of being a grandparent is watching kids' movies with my grandsons. Recently, I watched a powerful movie that speaks to this gut-wrenching moment in time that we find ourselves in. How many of you are grandparents here? Raise your hands. All right. How many of you have watched Encanto? Raise your hands. All right, great. Well, if you haven't seen it, I want to encourage you to do so. The opening scene of the movie impacted me deeply and reminded me of the trip that I took last fall to the border of Texas and Mexico with many of the people that you heard from tonight. The opening scene shows a family that is forced to leave their home and find a new one. They are being hunted down by men on horseback. We see them crossing a river in an attempt to flee danger. They are in search of a miracle as they seek refuge and shelter on the other side. That opening scene is what the refugees and immigrants at the border of Mexico and the United States have and continue to experience. In real life, not animation, they too are being hunted down by armed men on horseback as they seek safety. On the trip, I had the opportunity to bike 10 miles into Reynosa, Mexico, and cross the international bridge. Later, I took a boat ride on the Rio Grande. I saw both sides of the border at once and the wall that we've heard so much about that is meant to both physically and emotionally keep people out. The privilege of crossing borders is one that I personally have taken for granted. The refugees at the border in Mexico cannot just wave their passport and walk across like I can. They can't get on a boat and ride down the Rio Grande on the river either. In fact, many of them attempt to cross it, risking their lives for a chance at the miracle of freedom. We are all well aware of the global refugee crisis we are experiencing in the world. And if you are like me, you may often feel helpless at what is happening and don't know how to help. Like one of the songs from the movie, We Don't Talk About Bruno, which I'm guessing many of you have heard of. We often don't want to talk about our own crisis here at the border of the United States and Mexico. However, there are things that we can do to help the refugees knocking at our very own door. One such way is with partnering with the work that Alma Ruth is doing with Project Mercy. We went down this fall, and I had the honor to see firsthand the work that she and Project Mercy are doing. Her and her board graciously took our group across the border to meet some of the indigenous women and children they are helping. I walked through their tent city and saw the terrible living conditions that these women and their children are forced to live in as they wait and wait for some glimmer of hope of a miracle. I broke bread, well, actually tortillas, and shared a meal with them. I wept as I heard their stories of determination, strength, and bravery in the midst of danger and trauma. I played and interacted with the children who still find a way to experience joy in the midst of their terrible situation. And finally, I walked back across the border into the US, silently crying as I became even more acutely aware of my own white privilege. I think they were more a blessing to me than I was to them. As a person of faith, I have wrestled with what can I and do I need to do regarding our border crisis. Here are some things that I would like to ask you to consider. First, get involved with and support Project Mercy or one of the other organizations here that are helping our refugees at the border. Second, visit and see the work that they are doing. Last February, I had hoped to take a group down to Reynosa, but then our COVID numbers spiked. And I still would like to take a group from West Michigan. So if you are interested in joining me, please let me know this evening. Third, advocate and speak out for fair border and immigration policies. And finally, support and get involved with Vote Common Good as they address important issues and promote the common good for everyone. My husband Keith and I have been involved with Vote Common Good for approximately 4 years now. We have been able to participate in a number of their different ventures, and I'm sure they have even more up their sleeve. We even have our own West Michigan Vote Common Good chapter. So please get involved. In closing, I just want to urge all of us to please be part of being a miracle to our refugees and immigrants at the Mexican border. Thank you.
I don't make as good of movies as Danny, but I did make that movie. And I wanted to show it to you because it's a really good picture of what happened to my heart. On August 3rd, 2019, I used to live here in Michigan. 3 of my kids were born here, but we migrated to Northwest Arkansas. And we were back to school shopping at a Walmart that day, and I got a news alert on my phone that there had been a shooting and another shooting. And this was the time that it finally broke through to me, that shooting. And I think it's because the details that came out, they got my attention. We found out about that shooter that he was really motivated by the current administration. And he was so filled with hate and fear that he drove 10 hours across the state of Texas and went to El Paso. And before he left, he laid out all of his guns and spelled out a name and took a photo and loaded that to social media. I think you can figure out what that name is. And then when he got into that store, he would point his weapon at people, and he would pass over white people so that he would have more bullets to kill more brown people. And that's what got to me, because it was so easy to imagine myself in that Walmart. And if we had been there and that shooter had seen my family, he would have passed over me and my husband, my 2 oldest kids, and our youngest kid, but he would have shot my daughter, my Latina daughter, my adopted Charlie. I couldn't get that image out of my head, played over and over and over again for like a month. And so Vote Common Good offered a border experience for people to come and see what was going on. Where that crisis really captured Doug's imagination, and he said, we need to go there. And I didn't know what I was going to do, but I got on a plane and I went. Because I was that rattled by this event. And so when we got there, we went and we saw the place where the shooting had happened, and we saw the long memorial that was there, and people were still coming and bringing their flowers and their leaving their memories. It was the size of a football field, the length of that. And we held a vigil there with some of the people. And then we also went and saw the actual wall, and that was the first time I had seen this thing that we kept hearing about. And, you know, just a month earlier, I had been in New York City taking my kid to college, and I wanted to go and see the Statue of Liberty because my great-grandmother came over from Ukraine when she was 16 years old, and she passed through Ellis Island, and I wanted to see where she had been. And now I was seeing this wall, this place, where so many people immigrate, and this ugly, ugly, menacing, hideous, really stupid wall, because there are huge gaps in between sections of it. It doesn't even make any sense. There's like a section and then a gap like this, and then another part of the wall. It makes no sense. It's wasted money, wasted metal. So we saw that, and then we also went to a in-district congressional hearing, and we were able to hear from their local people, their local lawmakers, policymakers, their congresswoman, who's remarkable, and I heard some of their stories. I heard a story about how Border Patrol shot an 8-year-old girl across the Rio Grande, and because they are not under constitutional law, they are under Homeland Security, there's no justice. And I went back to my room that night, and I was alone in this desert, this beautiful, beautiful desert. And it was so quiet, and there's a way that the wind blows there. And I knew that God wanted me to do something, and I was freaking out because what I was saying to God was, I'm just a regular person. I'm not rich, I'm not famous, I don't have skills, I don't have influence, I've got nothing. What am I gonna do? Who's gonna listen to me? They're never gonna believe me. And in that silence of that desert night, I heard God's voice, plain as day. You haven't said anything yet. And so I started talking. I'm a broken china mosaic artist, so I can say things through my art. There's another artist in the room tonight. Doug Padgett is a performance artist. He got this idea for a piece of art to travel across the country on these bikes and, again, put out the call, who wants to come and do it? And my husband said, thanks, I'm out. No, I don't bike. But he said I could go. And I'm an artist, I'm not an athlete, but I went to Texas again. And Texas is huge, and it is hot. And I biked 250 miles in Texas. You know what that taught me? I'll tell you what that taught me. It taught me how exhausting and how hot and how unknown the journey must feel like for people who don't have Tim Gilman making them peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, who don't have a bed and a tent to go to. That lives in my body and in my brain now. I know what that must feel like to be out there in that vast space. So I went home for a little bit, and then I went back out again, and I went to Florida, and I rode another 250 miles. I'll tell you, Florida felt a little dangerous with some of those pickup trucks with the flags, so they would drive really close to us along the way and honk their horns and make a lot of noise. That felt a little scary. Yeah, and you know, the greatest part, though, for me, was the day after we had dipped our toes in the ocean in St. Augustine, and there was a group of us. There was a group of 4 women who ended up, we were waiting for our hotel shuttle. All the hoopla was over, it was quiet, we packed up, we're ready to get going. And I had this opportunity to sit in the presence, the light, the warmth, the glow of Alma Ruth and Dora and another lady, Maria, who gives out water in the desert. Just 4 women sitting around, relaxed, telling our stories, talking about how we got to where we got to. And the thing that got to me as I was sitting and listening in this Holy Spirit, I'm telling you, this was church sitting with these. I mean, you've gotten a little taste of these women. You're in love with them now. You adore them. It was wonderful. And the story that came up, though, was that all of them had this similar thread, that they had done everything right. They had followed the rules. They had done what they were supposed to do. And they were betrayed by the people that were supposed to be there for them. They'd experienced domestic violence. They had experienced disappointment from their churches that should have supported them and had their backs. They had done everything right. They had been brave and bold, and they had been betrayed. And they reminded me of this biblical story of this woman who twice found herself in the desert on the verge of death. I thought about that woman, and she was stuck in a system that was not for her. Her skin was the wrong color. She had been exploited as a sex slave. And she found herself in the desert on the brink of death, and she was pregnant. It's about as vulnerable as it gets. And another time, she had her child there with her and laid him down under a bush and walked away because she didn't want to watch him die. Her name is Hagar. Hagar does something very interesting. I don't think anybody else in the Bible does this, but Hagar does this. Usually God names people. He says, oh, you're going to be like this. This is going to be your new name. This is going to be your new life. Hagar names God. Hagar says how this is going to be. These women in the desert, woman power, that's what we say. Hagar calls God the God who sees. You are the God who sees. My job as an artist is to help you see things. Doug has given us this opportunity to see things. We were able to see not just the women doing the work, but the women and the people that are trapped in the system. Danny helps you see things. It's our job as artists and creatives. That's what we do. Tonight I'm going to let you see something that nobody else has gotten to see yet. This is a mosaic piece, and it is this size. It's 14 feet long, that I have made for a museum that will be exhibited in the fall in Washington, D.C. And this piece is called Rend and Remember. It's probably a little bit hard to see from where you are, but I'll tell you a little bit. It's 7 panels, and it's a calendar, and it's also a map. It's made out of souvenir plates from the United States. And so they're laid out in geographical order of, Texas and Arkansas, where I'm from now, and, just Tennessee and all those other pieces down there. So yeah, it's a map. It's also made out of commemorative Mother's Day plates for all the mothers whose hearts have been broken. Everybody loves to joke with me about my art when they see it. They're like, oh, you're just out there smashing plates, taking out your aggression. That must feel so good, just smashing that stuff. I don't normally drop plates from a ladder from 10 feet. That's not how I make art. And the reason is because you can't make any beauty out of violence. All we can do is pick up the pieces. See, we have a broken immigration system. And we need to come together and be the parts of it that makes it beautiful and makes it right. You have been given a lot of information tonight. You're probably exhausted. We're almost done. Thanks for hanging in there. We appreciate it. There are some things that you can do because you are feeling broken. I know you are. You are exhausted from the years of pandemic and the political upheaval. You probably have had stressful situations with your families and conversations in the last few years. We have a lot of brokenness going on. You're feeling broken. You need to participate for you to heal. We want you to be a part of this so that you can heal. And so there are a couple of things you can do. You can just follow Alma Ruth on Instagram, and you will learn so much. You can go slow. You will take it in at a pace you can handle, and you'll figure it out. You can sit with that brokenness. Don't try to get away from it. Don't turn on Netflix, turn on Hulu maybe and watch Danny's show, but don't run away from the brokenness. Let it sit with you for a little bit, and you'll figure out what to do. You can give, you can vote, you can participate in your local politics. You guys are so lucky. You've got Nick here. That's fantastic, my friend. You've got Alicia here. You got people, so you're not alone. You can follow along with the podcasts that get produced on the weekly from Vote Common Good. You can sign up, give us your email, let us send you information. You can support the film. If you can't give money, tell your friends about it, share clips. You can be healed. You can be whole. You can make this beautiful. So join with us.
I'll grab that one. Thank you, Vanessa. Brandon's going to come up and take us out with a song. I'm going to stand down here. I realize this works just fine to stand down here. Yeah, that was Vanessa riding on that ride. So good to have her. We do appreciate you being here. We know it's been a long night, but we really thought it was important to include all those local people who are trying to make Holland the right kind of place. And we thought it was important to include all these stories. All these people don't get to travel with us every time. And we've been in Holland a lot. We've done events in this room. We've done events over at another place. We did events out in that park. We've done events at the Berghoff's house. We're going to keep doing things in Holland. So we kind of feel like we're at home and we can just hang out the whole time. So we're really glad that we could spend a little bit of extra time with you tonight. Brandon's going to wrap us up. We'd love to see you back at any of those tables or any of that. We do want your email. Look, if you send us your email, don't worry. We're not going to email you once a week or anything. We're not that kind of group. We actually email you 3 times a week, so get used to that. It's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We'll keep up just in case something's going on where we are or where you're going to be. So we'd love for that to happen and for you to feel like you're part of it. And then we can hang out here in the theater. And if you want to see more of the documentary itself, it's playing on that back television screen, so you can watch a 30-minute piece of all of that. That's in Reynosa and McAllen. Along this wall here, if this is of interest to you, another group that we met called Border Perspectives. They drove the other way. They started in Texas and drove to California, and they marked each of these mile markers along the way. And if you point your camera at the QR code, it'll open up a website and it'll tell you more of what's going on there. That's another way you can follow this. There's just a lot of ways to be involved. And you being here tonight has meant so much to all of us. If you know anybody in South Bend, Indiana, we're going there tomorrow. We're in a theater like this. We're doing it in South Bend. As we say at all of our events, come along with us. Really, drive down to South Bend tomorrow, and then we're going to head over on Saturday to Madison and then to Minneapolis. You're welcome to tag along with us if you want. We'd love to have you, or feel like you're traveling with us in what we're doing. This is Brandon Pfeiffer. Brandon was on the ride with us. Not only did he ride a bit, he also drove a truck with equipment in it and took care of us. And he and Tim were part of the support team that made it possible for all of us to travel. And Brandon played music along with Dan with those kids in that video that you saw. And this is Brandon Pfeiffer, and he wrote this song too.
Oh, where is the justice we need? Tell me, where is the justice we all want to see? And when I marched in the street, I began to see, I saw that the justice we need is the justice that needs me. Tell me, where is the healing? Where is the healing we need? Oh, please, where is the healing we all want to see? And when I turn on my TV, I still see so much pain and disease. I see that the the healing we need is the healing that needs me. So tell me, where is the peace that we need? Oh, please, where is the peace that we all want to see? And so I phoned up an old friend, and I said, I'm sorry for your grief, and I see down peace that we need is the peace that needs me. And I see that the healing we need is the healing that needs me. And I see that the justice we need is the justice that needs me. Thank you for joining us tonight. Be sure to come and see us at the tables back there.